senador na bulaga dahil may ahas sa loob ng Senate na nagsiwalat sa media. Ito ay ukol sa nangyaring executive session ng mga senador at nailabas ito sa media sa panukalang confidential funds sa Office of the Vice President at Department of Education. Naibalik ito. Kaya nagalit ang mga senadors dahil may mga ahas pala na nakapaligid sa kanila. At labag ito sa Senate House Rules under Section 129. Kaya halos lahat ng senador ay nadismaya dahil sa kawalan ng respeto at sa pagiging traidor. Well, hindi lingid sa lahat ang mga kontrapartido kung sino ang against sa confidential funds ng Office of the Vice President na mga senador. Sila lang naman itong wala pang nagawa sa bayan, kundi ang pangungurakot at panggagamit sa mga taong nasa laylayan.
Mr. President, yesterday we had an all senators caucus and we discussed lengthily the budget of the Republic of the Philippines. And just before we entered this august chamber, much to my dismay and much to our dismay, there was a news report that identified 8 or 9 senators, and there were names on that list. 8 or 9 senators who wanted to restore the confidential and intelligence fund of the Vice President and the Department of Education. And I wish to tell the people of the Philippines that there was no votation that happened yesterday with regard to the intelligence fund of the Vice President and the Department of Education. In fact, we had an executive session. And I do not know who of our colleagues who scooped or leaked our conversation to this media outlet. I have been a senator here for more than 10 years. And this is the first time that I encountered a scoop or a leakage. I do not know. I do not want to name names. This is a violation of our rules, and the majority floor leader will expound it later. Mr. President, we discussed lengthily for almost 2 hours the schedule, etc., of the budget of the Republic of the Philippines. We never touched or we never voted with regard to all the intelligence fund or confidential fund. We agreed unanimously to remove all the confidential and intelligence fund, not only that of the Office of the Vice President, including the Department of Education, but all security or civilian agencies na merong confidential and intelligence fund. Mr. President, nawala. I will just read. Sino mga pangalan? First on the list, Senator Robin Padilla, Christopher Bongo, Ramon Bong Revilla Jr., Ronald Bato de la Rosa, Jingoy Estrada, Lito Lapid, Francis Tolentino, and Cynthia Villar. They are putting us in a bad light, and I condemn this. And I take offense on this. Nakalagay pa, Senator Pia Cayetano is said to be supportive of reinstating Duterte's confidential funds if she can justify the need for them. This is not true. And I hope Senator Pia Cayetano will agree with me. Just for a while, Mr. President, hinahanap pa ni Senator Robin yung mga nakasulat. Ayun na raw yung Wi-Fi. Mr. President.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anis Cooper told this media outlet that Senators Sani Angara, Francis Escudero, Rafi Tulfo, Aquilino Pimentel III, and Risa Hontiveros are allegedly against the reinstatement of Duterte's secret allocation, which are lodged under the Office of the Vice President and the Department of Education.
Ang mga pangalang nasambit ni Senator Jingoy ay malamang sila ang mga ahas dahil gusto nilang tanggalan ng confidential funds ang ating Office of the Vice President dahil gusto nila itong pabagsakin para sa kanilang mga hidden political agenda. Kaso, ang leak na lumabas ay mali-mali, may dagdag bawas pa.
Mali-mali po itong report, Mr. President. And I think Senator Angara must not be included in this list. And among the offices, Duterte's allocation was part of the 1.2 billion in confidential funds that the House realigned to agencies focused on the West Philippine Sea. Mr. President, tumayo po ako dito dahil masamang-masama po ang loob ko. I really felt insulted. And I think my other colleagues here also felt the same way, Mr. President. And Mr. President, I stand before you and I want to make this recommendation, maybe to talk to this media outlet or to summon this media outlet and ask them, who among us violated our rules? Who among us leaked what transpired in our executive session yesterday? That's all, Mr. President.
At dahil sa usaping ito, ay isiningit ni Senator Villanueva ang House Rules ng Senate na isa ring dismayado.
Very much. Mr. President, first of all, let me state and put into the records that I'm aghast of what happened, Mr. President. Whether this is leak or pure chismis, the fact that it came out, Mr. President, and it appears blow by blow, and unfortunately, Mr. President, the figures, the numbers, even the names that were mentioned were disoriented, Mr. President. I would just like to put into the record of this chamber, Mr. President, what our rules say about executive session. Section 129 of our rules, Mr. President, it states here, and I quote, any senator who violates the provisions contained in the preceding section may, by a two-thirds vote of all the senators, be expelled from the Senate. And if the violator is an official or employee of the Senate, he shall be dismissed.
At isa ring dismayadong senador, si Coco Pimentel, na gustong tanggalin ang confidential funds ng ating Pangulo. Agree ba kayong tanggalin para patas lahat at nang maramdaman niya kung gaano kasakit ang ginawa nila kay BP Sara?
Disappointed nga ako sa report kasi ang sabi doon na against ako sa restoration ng CF ng Office of the Vice President. Tama yun, pero kulang. Kasi kahapon ako sinasabi ko tanggalin din ang intelligence fund ng Office of the President. So kulang yung report, ipakidagdag sa report kasi the Office of the President is a civilian office, not an armed agency, and not a uniformed agency. So kulang po, pakidagdag na lang.
Mr. President, it is very unfortunate that this kind of incident happened within our midst. Number one, Mr. President, it creates distrust from among us 24 senators. Ibig sabihin, the next time around that we are going to have our caucus or executive session, hindi na ako basta-basta magsasalita. Baka mamaya, meron na naman maglilik sa media. Number two, it tarnished the image of the Senate. 24 lang tayong hinalal ng buong Pilipinas at hindi pa natin mapagkatiwalaan ang isa sa atin na pwedeng nag-leak. If indeed, it was leaked by any member of the Senate. Kung ang nag-leak naman noon ay empleyado na nandoon sa loob, well, as a police officer, former police officer, Mr. President, I can vividly recall kung sinong nandoon sa loob. Dalawang staff ni Senator Angara. Mavic.
Oh, Attorney Mavic.
Attorney Mavic. At may isang kasama si Attorney Mavic na babae. So, apat silang nalaman ko na nandoon sa loob. Magprangkahan tayo dito. Dapat we have to made into account yung tao na responsable dito. Hindi lang na magsisend tayo ng stern warning sa kanila. Kundi the damage has been done. Lumabas na yung balita niya, nasira na kung sinong dapat masira, but I don't care kung masira ang reputasyon ko. Ang sa akin lang, ma-preserve yung ating reputasyon as a Senate. Hindi po maganda yung hindi tayo magkakatiwalaan dito. 24 lang tayo, Mr. President.
And the waiter staff, huwag mo kalimutan yung mga staff sa likod. Yung mga waiter din, yung nandun din
Isama
sila.
natin sa investigasyon niyo, Mr.
sila.
President.
So what if the chamber wishes, I can ask Senator Nancy Binay, who is the chairperson of the Committee on Ethics, to look into this closely, if it is all right with the body.
Yes, I support, Mr. President, I support the call of Senator Jingo Estrada that yung source nitong news na ito, if it is a politiscope, he has to be called before a hearing para malaman natin kung sinong source niya. At kung hindi siya magsabi ng totoo, I will be the first one to move for the citing in contempt of that media personnel, Mr. President. Ikulong natin yan kung ayaw magsabi ng totoo. Mr. President, this is not a laughing matter. This is serious. Filipino people are watching us right now. Sabihin nila, ganyan na pala Senado ngayon, hindi ba pagkatiwalaan? Sila lang nag-uusap, maglilik pa doon sa media. It's very dangerous, Mr. President. Very dangerous. Masyadong akong dismayado. Thank you, Mr. President.
We agree with the gentleman.
That the Senate Committee on Ethics conduct a hearing and invite the source of the news, Mr. President, so that everything will be cleared out.
Colleagues, may I request that we discuss this in caucus now, because by saying what is true or untrue in the reported publication online, we are speaking about the executive session. And let me just remind the body of Section 129 of the Rules of the Senate. It is not even a matter of whether it's published online or hard copy. The mere divulging the executive session minutes or any part of it who violates all the provisions in the executive session contained in the preceding sections by 2/3 vote may be expelled from the Senate.
Sino sa kanila ang traidor o ahas sa Senado?
Mr. President, let me align myself with the observation and recommendation of the Senate President Pro Temp. I did not raise my hand with the intention of clearing any statement I made. I did not even read that. I don't bother reading those kind of articles. I don't. So, nung nabanggit pa yung pangalan ko, nagugulat lang ako kasi I don't bother reading those articles and I won't comment on it. What I will say is this. I will say it not because I'm repeating what I said in caucus, because I agree with Senate President Pro Temp that let's discuss it there. Because if our rules do not even make an exception. It does not even allow a senator to say, I will just repeat what I said. Walang ganun exception, Majority Floor Leader, correct? So I cannot stand up here and said, I will just be responsible for my statement. Ito po yung sinabi ko. Hindi tayo allowed, walang exception sa rules natin na tumayo ang isang senador at sabihin, yung akin pong sinabi doon, ito. Kasi hindi naman magkaroon ng opportunity yung ibang 23 senators to explain what they said or what they thought. Because precisely the rule is, lahat tayo tahimik. At kaya ang parusa doon, yung pinakamabigat na parusa na expulsion from the Senate. So, ang puntos ko ay simple. Chairman ako ng isang mahalagang committee na naghihiring ng budget na yan. DepEd, CHED, DOH, and attached agencies. So, on the issue of confidential funds, intelligence funds, or kung ano pa man, ako gusto ko, tanungin ng mga senador sa floor, yung mga tanong nila tungkol doon, para makapagdesisyon ang bawat senador kung ano ang tingin niyang nararapat na gawin sa mga pondong yan. Confidential, non-confidential, anything. So, yun yung gusto kong klase na diskusyon. So, kung nagkaroon tayo ng executive session na napag-usapan man ng ganon, hindi nga dapat lumalabas yon kasi nga, ang mga subcommittee chairman na katulad ko ay magre-recommend sa chairman na si Senator Angara kung ano dapat gawin sa mga pondong yon. Hindi ko naman didesisyonan mag-isa yon. Didesisyonan ko yon based on the debates. I would like to be educated properly based on the rules of the Senate. Gusto ko marinig yung posisyon ng Minority Floor Leader, ng Deputy Minority Floor Leader, ng Senate President, ng Senate President Pro Temp, ng mga baguhan na senator. Gusto ko marinig lahat yon. Anong paniwala nyo tungkol dito sa mga iba-ibang pondo and what will we do about it? Tapos, iharap natin sa taong bayan kung ano desisyon natin. So kaya nga, and I'm explaining this because the students, the young people, the old people who will now care to comment, bakit ba may executive session? Bakit ba kayo nagsisikreto? Wala naman kaming balak isikreto. Ilalabas nga yun. Pero minsan may mga diskusyon na gusto natin marinig yung opinion ng bawat isa na walang titigil nung, kunyari gusto kong magtanong ng, it's a stupid question. Pero tatanungin ko na, di ako mahihiya. Diba? Aminin natin, minsan nahihiya tayo magtanong dahil kasi bago lang ako. Di kaya kami executive session para lahat pwedeng maitanong, lahat pwedeng mailabas. Kaya dapat sikreto yun. And then at the right time, mapapag-usapan. I wanted to explain that lang, Mr. President, for the benefit of those watching us, kasi ang puntos is, bakit kayo may executive session? Bakit kayo may tinatago? Wala akong tinatago. Nagdidiskusyon ng maayos para bang magulang. Let's say, for example, na wala itong nangyaring ganito sisermo na ni Senate President o kaya ni Senate President Pro Temp ako, sisermo na nila ako. They will do that in private. In the executive session, ay Pia, di mo na intindihan. So gagawin namin yun in private para pagdating to sa public, ganun ba? O sige, tatanungin ko na lang in public o kaya di ko na tatanungin dahil naipaliwanag nyo na. That's the reason among many other reasons kung bakit may executive session. I just wanted to explain that dahil ang puntos nito is bakit may executive session at bakit may mabigat na kaparusahan. Wala tayong tinatago. But the reason for the rules is because it is meant to be followed. It is not meant to be violated. So kung may nag-violate, magkaroon ng tamang due process, magkaroon ng hearing, magkaroon ng opportunity to explain, and then the proper penalty must be meted out. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Cayetano.
Will destroy our credibility.
Ayon sa mga senador, narespetuhin nila ang House Senate rules under Section 1 to 9 at nang maipreserve ang reputasyon ng mga senador. Nagkagulo-gulo na ang Senado at Congress dahil sa pagmamanipula ng mga NPA na sa Congress under the influence of tambaluslos. Kaya damay-damay na. Pati ang Pangulo ay tatanggalan ng confidential funds. Ngayon, ang tanong, lalaban pa kayo sa Duterte? Comment down.
Nag-uulat, what's new?